on the bulletin board in the Harmon V. Wade Administration Building. And I just want to say one thing, I'd appreciate if everyone can please bear with the board as we make a similar transition as the students have and the staff, and try to follow the district's role model lead of transitioning to being online. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
On the
pledge
bulletin board
allegiance
in the
to
Harmon
the
V.
flag
Wade
of the United States of
Building.
America and to the
And I just want to say one
republic
thing,
that stands
one
one
nation,
nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Mr. Malik,
Present.
Mr. Joshi,
Present.
Mr. Singer,
Here.
Mr. Walker,
Here.
Mrs. Hurley,
Here.
Mrs. Thesey, Mrs. Mead,
Here.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Here.
Mrs. Barlow.
Here. Okay, we'll now go to the student representatives report.
So good evening. We would like to start by thanking all the people involved who have ensured that students and families have the resources and tools they need to continue learning. We also thank the board for your continued efforts to make these unexpected transitions as safe and as smooth as possible.
Right now, we have nothing to report in clubs, activities, and sports, which, as you all know, have come to a stop. The student body is definitely looking forward to when these activities resume. We wanted to share with you some of our overall feedback on how everything is going so far, both from our own experiences and from talking to some other students.
Students are having different experiences with distance learning at the high school. So some students have said that the work level seems appropriate and reasonable, while others are saying too much is being assigned. In some classes, video platforms are being used for instruction, but many teachers are just using Google Meet for office hours, while also providing students with materials through Google Classroom.
Many students are feeling overwhelmed with school because of the work being assigned, not having the normal structure of a school day, and the potential cancellation of major events like performances, graduation, and prom, but also changes in regards to standardized tests and AP exams. Feeling overwhelmed is definitely not just coming from school, but also because of all of the other problems and concerns that come from the issue the community is facing.
On a more positive note, we've seen many students and organizations finding ways to continue learning and working together through Zoom meets and social media campaigns. Many students really enjoy having more sleep and some additional free time. We understand that the administration has a focus on health and wellness, and we are working together to figure out and make distance learning. And we are also understanding of the situation.
And we had a conversation with Dr. Ezel yesterday for about an hour and discussed a lot of other specifics about how online learning and social distancing are going. And after speaking with the principal, he has been working with district administration, teachers, and other members of the community to address these problems, and we're working together to make the best out of the situation. And please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Jessica and Jasmine. We're now up to the superintendent's report. Dr. Lazovic.
Thank you, Ms. Barlow. So I want to thank the students for coming. I know they've been incredibly busy, and we greatly appreciate their perspective. I also want to remind everyone we've been communicating daily, so I want to consider this our Tuesday communication. And with this communication, there are only three things that I really want to focus on: our distance learning plan, our response to reporting, and the overall situation as far as the school district is concerned. Regarding distance learning, I want to say what our staff did was absolutely unthinkable about 2 weeks ago. And the same could be said of the entire education system here in New Jersey. The complexity of the entire endeavor to move to distance learning really can't be easily explained. But here we are somehow in week 2. We've received immense feedback from the community, and all of it positive, even when they're making suggestions or highlighting areas of need. Positivity has continued to pervade what we've heard, but I want to be clear, we know that this has been far from perfect, and we are still far from perfecting it. It's simply not possible to create a one-size-fits-all system, especially in the time period of overnight. But that said, what we have learned is that as we communicate with each other, when we are patient and forgiving, we have been able to find ways to work together. Thanks are in great demand, and I cannot list everyone by name, but from the Board of Education and their support of the administration, to all of our central office administration support staff, our building and district administrators, our entire faculty and staff, custodians, bus drivers, maintenance, all of our teachers, instructional support staff, anyone coming in and working with our students, and all of our office support staff. It's been an unbelievable demonstration of what we can do together. Our association leadership has been incredibly supportive and collaborative, and honestly, without them, our communication would have been far less effective. The students at all levels have stepped up. They've been absolutely fantastic, finding independence and creativity that we'd only started to tap educationally. So thank you. I want to say thank you specifically to all the students at BR. And of course, we are well aware that an immense burden has been placed on the families of our students. The current reality has upended and overturned any sense of normalcy, and it has placed a tremendous burden on individual homes. We know this. We thank you for all you're doing, and we will keep working to make this situation clearer and easier for all of us. I know that there are still many questions, like every district, that we have to answer, but please know that we're working daily not just to find answers, but to find the right answers and to communicate them clearly and at the right time. With all this said, though, I want to return to the start. This challenge that was thrust upon us with little time to prepare, but we've been able to keep learning moving forward. We've supported students and families in so many different ways, and we found new ways that we can be a community. Communications will continue from central office each day, containing important information on our platform and our process. Please remember to use our distance learning page as your central resource. It contains everything that we have and can be found on the navigation banner on every single page on the BRRSD website. It also includes a link to our Twitter feeds, which yesterday and today demonstrated our spirit. I truly hope that we continue to show this situation, that it will not stop our learning, and more importantly, it will not break our spirit. Thanks to all who posted. Keep it up. It is absolutely more valuable than most would think. The second topic is one that's been popping up in our on the professional side, but also throughout the community, this idea of reporting. I want to address the concept of reporting because with social media, there's a growing demand for information. To be clear, the school district operates under legal constraints and communicates directly with our county offices of health and education daily with the latter. Each, though, has provided incredible support through this process. That said, we report information to them. The school district will not be releasing personal medical information of any student or any staff member. I know that individuals are choosing to communicate their personal situations online. We support and respect those decisions, and we'll do everything that we can to help. However, even with their permission, as a school district, we cannot disseminate their information publicly. I want to be clear as to why, though. Based on all the recommendations from health officials and educators and our local political leaders, we are essentially locked down as a community, and we have to live under the assumption that we may have been exposed to this virus. We have to stay at home whenever possible. We have to maintain social distancing if we are out, and we need to closely monitor ourselves and our family members. At this point, general knowledge, which is all that the school district could share, should not change our current behavior. So to this end, we will continue to communicate with the offices who verify and can appropriately use and communicate the information, and we will continue to support everyone in the BR community and maintain confidentiality as required. That said, the third and final piece I would like to speak to is the larger situation. I want to conclude with an ask of the entire BR community. The way this situation has evolved, it is as serious a situation as we have faced in recent memory. We have the opportunity now, though, to save lives and to move past this sooner rather than later if we are all willing to do our part. We have heard the governor that this is no time for panic, but it is a time to participate. We all have to do this. Please stay at home as much as possible. When you are out, practice social distancing, and please continue to monitor the information from our health experts, which links can be found to from our distance learning page, and pay careful attention to yourselves and your family members. Our district mission speaks to everyday action. More than ever, now is the time for that type of action. Our district values state that we strive to be citizens who model excellence and courage and who hold themselves personally accountable for their words and their actions. Now is a time for community action. This is a time when we must live up to these words. We must take this seriously and we must work together. So thank you to everyone as we continue to move through this situation. Please continue to check our daily communications and please continue to be safe. Ms. Barlow.
Thank you, Dr. Lazovic. We are now up to the president's report. At the risk of being cliche, The old African proverb states that it takes a village to raise a child. Thank you to the BR Village during these challenging times to raise our children and continue their learning in a positive and supportive, albeit different, environment. As the district has moved through the past couple of weeks, we have gone through unprecedented change in an unprecedented amount of time. Staff, students, and parents have all stepped up. I wrote to my fellow board members a week and a half ago regarding the handing out of Chromebooks after seeing firsthand it ran like a well-oiled machine. No one would have had any idea this was put together in less than 48 hours. The positivity and professionalism of the staff was incredible. If this is any indication of how well distance learning will run over the next couple of weeks, we are in the most capable hands. That is not to say we won't run into issues along the way, but I have full confidence they will be well handled in a timely and efficient manner. This could not have happened without strong leadership at the helm. Thank you to Dr. Lazovic for the many hours he and his staff have put in to manage through this critical time. We are now a week and a half into distance learning. This has given further credence that we are in the most capable hands, as supported by the many positive comments on social media, which say it all. For example, quote, considering the timeline, I'd say they knocked it out of the park. Every teacher has been giving it their all, and the administration has been in lockstep. True leadership in a crisis, end quote. And quote, as a parent and educator in the district, I am so impressed with what we have done, end quote. Lastly, please let us all continue to do our part to follow scientifically and medically based guidelines to reduce the spread of COVID-19, to keep our family, friends, BR Village, and the global community safe. Links to resources can be found on our website. Try to stay happy and healthy. I know in my household, these times have brought much more family togetherness with playing board games, talking, and watching movies. Look for the positive and be there for each other. To the students, family, staff, and administration, you are amazing. Now we will go to the Vice President's report with Mrs. Gladstone.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Barlow. Two things to talk about, just a quick recap of the calendar. The board calendar, I guess since we weren't really sure we were going to be doing this, we do have to have probably the next meeting, a report on board goals and progress report on strategic goals and action plans. With the kind of rush to get this done, I think that probably slipped our minds a little bit. So let's plan for maybe the next meeting, whether it's live or right here again to do the goals. We have to also for March is the district calendar with 2 years ahead. So I guess we'll be hearing about that from Dr. Lazovic. I don't know if I don't know when you want to jump in, but I guess next year's is done, but the year after is usually we do that in March or very beginning of April. The violence and vandalism report was given. We did the comprehensive equity plan. We submitted the tentative budget after the last meeting when we approved it. And for April, I just want to remind everybody the financial disclosure forms are due to the Ethics Commission. And April 28th board meeting is when we adopt the final budget. That's it for that. And secondly, on my vice president's report is just a quick update on the superintendent search. The committee met with Mrs. Jane Kirshner from school boards last Friday, and we made a draft calendar of timeline, but I spoke to her yesterday, and I did tell the committee, I'm just reporting to all of you, because of this situation now where we have the COVID-19 and the districts are scrambling to meet the needs of the distance learning, a lot of superintendent searches are sort of put on pause right now. So we're not necessarily, we're going to still go forward, but Jane Kirshner told me that let's wait about a week or two before we put the ad out. As far as the interim superintendent. We have a list, and tomorrow night, this superintendent search committee will be having a conference call or maybe meeting like this to go through a list of interim superintendents. And I also will ask that we're going to have a special email address for interim superintendent search at brrsd.org. And we'll be putting out a calendar soon. But I think because of the situation, we just had to slow down a little bit. That's about it. We'll be meeting, like I said, the superintendent search committee is talking tomorrow to discuss next steps. And that's really it. Let me know if you have any questions.
And Mrs. Gladstone, just to jump in on the calendar, we had actually had a meeting scheduled, which is being rescheduled for a Google Meet like this. We're getting the same people in district together and hope to have a draft calendar to the board for April.
Terrific. Thank you.
Jill, I have a question. Are you going to update the board once you have your next steps in your next meeting, or do we have to wait until?
I
board-
think it would be appropriate to, we got to just make sure the sunshine laws are okay. If it might just be an information only, do not reply to all, like an email, the basic information. I don't know if we have to run that by council. I would just want to make sure if it's just information only, and I put a little update to the board, like this is what we decided, this is the ad, etc. Or also, I was speaking with Jackie before the survey goes up. I did mention we're looking at Montclair School District to get community input. Before we put that up, we want to share that with the full board again, just to go over one more time. But I don't really think we have to wait for a full, as long as we don't have a back and forth discussion. If you see something, have a question, I could get back to you on that. Is that good?
Thank you, Mrs. Gladstone. Next, we are up to the committee reports. First, we have the academic committee, Mr. Malik.
Our next meeting is April 22nd.
Thank you. And our next one is community relations, Mr. Joshi.
Next meeting is on April 21st.
Okay, thank you. And next, we've got finance, facilities, and transportation, Mr. Walker.
We're scheduled for April 13th, next Monday. Peter, can we do this as a Google Meet?
Probably can. Shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
I'm assuming a lot of these well, I guess we don't know yet. The next, we've got personnel committee. And Mrs. Thesey is not here right now, but the next meeting for that is April 21st. Are there any liaison or delegate reports? Okay, seeing none, we're up to the first open public comment section. And again, I just want to state that these comments, that people are able to comment at any time via the chat. These comments will be reviewed at the appropriate time during the meeting. As a reminder, the open public session is not for a back and forth dialogue, but strictly to hear the comments of the public. You must log in using a Google account. All comments will be recorded and are public for all to review. And so people are able to comment at any point during the meeting, just so you're aware. And I'm going to go ahead and just read the formal agenda item here. Individuals and or groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests regarding the following action items in the Board of Education to the Board of Education at this time. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted one opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. But again, there's no time here. You can just write what you would like in the chat session, and we can review those comments. Please be advised that an audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the district's website. And again, what you put in the chat room is also being recorded. And I'm just going to take a quick look to see if we have anything there.
Jackie?
Yes.
One thing I'm noticing is the video chat, the video link is about 15 seconds behind.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. And right now I am not seeing anything. Okay, so But again, people are free to comment, throughout the meeting via that chat room. And we're going to go on to the next item on the agenda. Approval of minutes. So we have the March 10th regular session and the March 10th closed session for the minutes. Any discussion?
So moved?
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malik,
yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes,
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we have got approval of the personnel items, and it's Personnel 20-34.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Abstain.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mrs. Mead,
yes,
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we've got curriculum 20-39 and curriculum 20-40.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one question. If the training doesn't go on, Russ, we just don't, how does this work?
If the trainings don't go on, then they don't attend. At this point, we're hoping that, if they're canceled by the organizations, that we get full refunds. But at this point, a lot of things that we left on the agenda, as I said, in finance and facilities, these are requirements. So if they are open, we're gonna need the folks to go, and at worst case, they'd simply be rescheduled if these organizations have to shut them down.
The same with the field trips?
Yes, and we're having conversations in academic now, which we'll bring to the board, but we have to make a determination about how we're gonna address field trips for the remainder of the year. So we're having those discussions now.
So would this go all the way into end of the year, I guess, right? Just not the immediate future, a month and a half away.
Correct. We're just trying to take this a step at a time as we get information from the authorities.
So
I have
if
to
we
be
approve-
honest, I'm really uncomfortable approving that orchestra trip.
that's 2020.
That's next year.
Next year.
Oh, it's next year? Oh, duh. Okay, thank you. I thought, okay.
Anything else? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes,
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. And next, we have got business 20-98 through business 20-104.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion?
I have a question regarding the T-Mobile hotspots. The cost of the hotspots, that's just the actual device, not the service, correct?
No, that's for the service as well. That's for a year's worth of service, I believe.
Okay, great, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, I just want to call out the gifts and thank both ShopRite at Bound Brook and Wegmans of Bridgewater for the plastic bags for meal distribution. Roll call, please.
Mr. Malik,
yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mrs. Mead,
yes,
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. Next, we're up to other 20-31 and 20-32. For these, if there are any discussion, we would need to go into closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion needed? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
No on 20-31, yes on 20-32.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. We're up to policy 20-19. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Malik,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Hurley,
Yes.
Mrs. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Gladstone,
Sorry, yes.
Mrs. Barlow.
Yes, motion carries. We're now up to our second opportunity for open public comment. So again, although we have two open public sessions of the board and the agenda, please be aware that the public can comment at any time via the chat. These comments will be reviewed at the appropriate time during the meeting. As a reminder, open public session is not for back and forth dialogue, but strictly to hear the comments of the public. You must log in using a Google account. All comments will be recorded and are public for all to view. So individuals and/or groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests to the Board of Education at this time for any matters. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted this opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. Please be advised that an audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the district's website. And again, I was just checking the chat room and I was not seeing anything there.
Ms. Barlow, can you see there, we have 3 comments in the chat.
I am not seeing anything.
So Ms. Gladstone, do you mind if we only have 3? One of the things that was recommended, if it was a small number, that we would read it during the appropriate time. Do you want to have the honor?
I would love to. Jackie, you still on C? I actually had to sign in through the district website because the email link didn't work before.
Oh, really? Okay. I am not seeing it and I don't want to mess with my
Okay.
screen right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you have
you're
to go
okay reading
through
it, that would be
the,
great.
Okay, you would like me to? Okay, we have Laura Kress, BREA President, writes, "Hi, the district is rocking it. I want to give a shout out to the teachers. The administration has been awesome. Russ, Karen, and Dan are doing a great job. The supervisors have been awesome. We have been working so well together." And again, another one. "Oh, and nice to see the board. I hope you are all well." Thank you, Ms. Kress. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Gladstone.
Thank you, Ms. Gladstone. And next we are up to old business. Any old business? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to new business.
I just want to bring up something that was brought up to me by a couple of different community members. I've been asked if we could consider changing spring break. I have mentioned this before to Russ. One member mentioned that if we continued education over the spring break, we could then dole out days over the rest of the year to make it a 4-day week for a few weeks. And another member simply asked if we could move the spring break to later on in the year when things might be a little bit more, we might know what's going on with travel and things might be a little bit more open. Something I thought I should bring up to the board, and I've done so.
Any discussion on what Steve has raised?
Yeah, along the same lines is, we also have 3 give back days, I think still coming, Russ, if I count correctly. Could those be used in spring break and then spring days be, otherwise be utilized? I'm just very similar to what Steve's saying, but using those days more effectively, or I don't know. I mean, if it gets to the point where we won't have graduation ending school sooner too, if those are areas we need. So just some conversation about it.
Overall, just jumping in, I would be leery to start playing with the calendar because daily we get communication from the county office who is talking with Trenton that they are contemplating all manner of changes. So just in general, I get nervous playing with the calendar. Number two is that what we're trying to do right now is use that week to space out as much of a quarantine as we possibly can without losing educational time because this just moves quickly. Hopefully the goal still is to get people back into school as soon as possible. And the other piece of that is that we are, Ms. Jones and I led a conversation with all of our administrators this morning about how we schedule moving forward. And part of, I mean, all of what Mr. Singer was saying is important, but a large part of that is this idea that the work weeks, the school weeks are difficult. And one of the things we've been trying to do is trying to look at the way we schedule the week moving forward. So without having to drop a day, but actually how we're scheduling Monday through Friday to try and reduce the amount of pressure on the students and give more time for work to be done appropriately. And we think we can address that issue more effectively through scheduling than by shifting the days around. The only other piece on the inclement weather days, we have our give back days, Mr. Walker, you mentioned. I'm going to hold on to them as long as we can because I don't know what's going to happen. At some point in time, we may need to make a recommendation to the board to move those. But until we have better information, I wouldn't recommend at this point moving anything within the calendar. And Mr. Singer is accurate. He did raise this. We had a conversation.
So along the same lines as not moving the calendar, but maybe moving the schedule, and that, you know, we're still starting high school at 7:20 by schedule. Is there any potentially of shifting that to 8 o'clock?
So a great deal of feedback that we did get from families and from students is that being able to wake up and start some of these classes later would be appreciated. We're actually getting feedback from teachers that they're seeing, and it's not across the board, there's nothing necessarily consistent, but teachers are actually reaching out. It came up in our meeting with the administrators today. I haven't been hearing it, but apparently they have that the students feel they're doing much better work in their later classes. So we have looked at a number of
Is there
draft
data on
schedules. So we've looked at a number of draft schedules that unify the whole district in a way, but also start later, allowing teachers to do prep work and the rest before. The teacher workday would not change. But when we recommend those office hours, if you will, shift a bit, and the instructional time, which teachers are leveraging more and more as we get into this. There are many more, especially at the secondary level. I wouldn't say full classes, but online meetings like this, where there is direct instruction happening from our faculty directly to students. What we did find is that we want to make sure we build a schedule that allows those to happen without teachers having to interrupt each other and without students being pulled in multiple directions. And we're also taking into account the fact that there may be houses, there are houses where devices are being shared. And so one of the benefits of a staggered schedule, even if it's a later start, is that you don't have only one period of the day where everyone seems to be fighting for the Chromebooks or the laptops or the desktops. And so we were taking all those into consideration and trying to not change course drastically and suddenly as we're kind of all learning together. But we are looking to finish the third marking period, which is next week. Communication will come out about the third marking period tomorrow. And then talk about how we can approach the fourth marking period, as one of our principals put it, knowing that some, if not most, if not all of that fourth marking period instruction may be on the distance learning platform. So we're working on plans right now to communicate the end of the third marking period tomorrow to everyone. And before we go into that spring break, how we're going to approach marking period 4. Things like grading, turning in assignments and assessments, what the timeline will be, but trying to answer those questions by level as appropriate before we go into spring break.
Any other discussion?
So just thinking out loud, going into fourth marking period, let's say if we were to continue this to a certain extent, how would we figure out how we're going to actually teach? Because some concepts will be new to many students. So how do we manage that aspect of teaching where new concepts are introduced? This may be good temporarily, but how do we do this going into, deeper into the school year and towards the end?
And that's why, Mr. Joshi, that's why I was talking about, we're looking at this as an evolving system. Right now, this has helped us keep learning going, but I know, especially at the high school level, I know our probably 2 student representatives would talk about their stress, because we're still living under our old notions of how the senior year would end or how the academic year would end, but we're in a completely different academic reality. And one of the things teachers are already doing, as I said, especially at the secondary level, but we will be planning for more scheduled direct instruction, so that we're not asking parents to teach their students or students to teach themselves, but that our teachers have an appropriate time to move through the most important aspects of each curricula by class with direct instruction. They have recorded lessons and offered, we've literally had teachers who are recording new lessons on new concepts, and the students can watch them at the appropriate, at times that work for them, and then reach out to the teacher with questions and the rest. Obviously, there's a great deal of work, and I think we're trying to find a happy medium between what an appropriate year looks like on a distance learning platform versus if we were still face-to-face with our teachers.
Something that has really worked in terms of learning new concepts is for my math class. My teacher's posting videos, and then he gives us the entire day to figure out what we can, and then we'll ask him questions, and he gets back to each of us so that he answers each of our specific questions. So it's been really helpful, because those are definitely new concepts building off of what we learned before, but it's been very helpful.
Thanks, Jasmine. I don't know if Jessica wants to weigh in before summer finish. Jess?
Yeah, I think that definitely the videos and the live instruction are helpful when they are happening. They haven't happened in all of my classes, but I think having more of that would definitely help to learn new concepts, especially.
And I think that, thank you both. I think that epitomizes what I was describing, which is that right now things are happening, but they're not 100% consistent. And so what we're trying to do is, and I have to tell you, I'm going to echo Ms. Kress, a huge round of applause to the teachers, because they're trying to find their way. And we're planning as we go. And so really gaming up to try and finish the third marking period in a way that does not negatively impact any of our students. But more importantly, having a more consistent plan for marking period 4 is something that while we're doing the instruction right now, they are racing to put together so that we can communicate that to everyone for next week. And supervisors really leading the charge. They've been everywhere through this online platform. Our building administrators jumping in and really showing their instructional leadership. It has been a full team effort, but we are, Mr. Joshi, to your point, looking to make sure that we can extend learning, not just maintain the current as we look toward the fourth marking period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else from anyone?
Yeah. Has the College Board said anything about AP and exams and SATs that were scheduled for later in the year?
So
Yes.
AP,
Yes, they did. I'm actually getting, Jessica or Jasmine, could you share what you've heard from the building? Because I have to take this phone call. I apologize to the board members. I have to step off for a second.
so for
Yeah. AP exams are going to be 45 minutes at home, and there's no multiple choice. So we don't really know more detail than that,
Yeah.
but
there's just not like much as far like we don't know a huge amount about exactly what the test is going to be, but the College Board did post the content that's covered. So the College Board said that they planned that what we've learned so far up to March, that's what's going to be on the exam.
Right. So College Board on their site, they actually, that's all correct. They actually posted what will be covered and then what will not be covered on the exam this year. And there's going to be new additional information that'll be more specific to the concepts, I think in early April. So we're watching the College Board post because they are, as things change, they're updating. But that's correct, 45 minutes from home and no multiple choice.
I think that's one thing that's going to be interesting is, do teachers choose to just teach what's on the AP exam or still maintain the regular curriculum? I think there are pros and cons to both, but I know some of my teachers have said that they're still going to go with the normal curriculum, so they're not trying to just teach the test, but we also need to focus on what is going to be on the test. So
Some teachers have some of my teachers said, okay, now that these changes, for example, for my research class, they took away this entire component of the exam. So my teacher said, okay, we're just going to focus on making sure that this gets done. So I think it just depends on the class specifically.
Okay, thank you.
I think as College Board shares that information, Mr. Malik, the teachers have been in some way, shape, or form adjusting based on what they know they can get through this platform. But I know that they're all working to make sure the students are as prepared as possible for the test and trying to cover the curriculum that we wrote for those classes as they can.
Any other discussion?
Along those same lines, did the governor cancel NJSLA today? Is that?
So to be clear, we talked about this in our administrative meeting. I believe the president as well as the governor have talked about this, but the governor has been clear that in order to not issue state testing, the state has to receive approval of its waiver. And my understanding is that the waiver was submitted today. So I'm
Okay.
just waiting on official word. I mean, we all believe this is going to happen, but we're waiting for the official written confirmation.
And along the same lines, are we going to continue with map testing if available? I mean, I know it's used different areas and full grades at certain times in the beginning of the year, the end of the year. Is that still up in the air, still being figured out too?
So it's part of our, I mean, Mr. Matonis was on our conversation this morning, again, as all the administrators were. And this is something that we're talking about within our assessment plan. What can we do? What can we do that is still authentic and valid and reliable? And we're having those conversations now as we talk about what the fourth marking period would look like, because we do want to make sure as much as possible instruction continues. So assessment is a huge piece of that.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, our next board meeting is April 14th. That will be a regular meeting, and we'll see what happens, whether we're back on this platform or back in the BRHS cafeteria. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved. Okay. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too,
Good night.
Jackie.
See ya.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks.